In New York City, we've taken lots of initiatives to employ people with disabilities. We have created a program called NYC at Work. It's a public-private partnership to employ people with disabilities. We have about 1,900 job seekers from a coalition of service providers, and we are working to connect them to jobs. We've also built the Business Development Council. And our Business Development Council is companies in high-growth sectors such as finance, technology, healthcare, retail, and of course, city government, because we have a role to play in this. And we work with our Business Development Council with close to about 100 members, and we teach them what reasonable accommodation is and how you can provide for people with disabilities in the workplace and set them up for success. We've also created a financial empowerment program called Empowered NYC, where we let people know and give them resources to meet with financial counselors to talk about all ways that they can learn how to bank, learn how to save, and manage their benefit programs and still continue to work at the same time. We've created something called the Ability IT Lab, which is a Cisco certified program where people get trained in cybersecurity. And when they're done, they come out with that Cisco certification, and they also turn around and get a job with it, either through internship or through direct employment. And those are some of the initiatives that we've been running to employ people with disabilities in New York City. Employment in the public sector is very important. And my advice is to actually look at your programs, understand what they're about, and see what you can do to employ people with disabilities within those programs. In the 1970s, New York State put together a 55A program. And that program allowed people with disabilities to get a job through New York City government, about over 700 of those people, and not have to take a civil service test. And a civil service test is a test that allows people to get into government, but people with disabilities through this 55A program do not have to take this test. And that allowed people with disabilities to come into the workplace. But it was always understood that the program was for low-level jobs. And if they hired people, people didn't get growth in those jobs. So we looked at that and turned that whole system around. And we said, there are qualified people with disabilities out there. And we work with all of our partners throughout city agencies to ensure that people with disabilities are matched to the jobs, making sure that their talent and making sure that talent pipeline is there. And generally, that never happened before. So our goal was to employ. And when we did that, and we looked at the 55A program before we got involved, in 2016, there were 4 people hired under this 55A program. Then in 2017, there was another 4 people. Then when we got involved in 2018 and 2019, we have about 72 people employed with another 8 people in the pipeline. So we know there's success. And I encourage people to look within their government programs and see how they could use it to their advantage and get qualified people for that. And it's really important to look at the jobs, not at the disability. And that will set that person up for success. It would absolutely make sense to have public sector involved in the inclusion of people with disabilities. We have done lots of work to include people with disabilities, and we couldn't do that without a network. Businesses are where the jobs are, so you need to reach out to businesses. Job seekers and service providers, they're all connected, so they all have to be there as well. We have to move this needle of unemployment for people with disabilities. And if we do it in a silo, we will never be able to get to the next level. So working across networks, working across with job seekers, working across both in public sector and private sector is the only way we're going to be able to move the needle of unemployment for people with disabilities.